Men and women are different. I know that's a shocker, right? That come as a surprise to you. Everybody knows that, but why is it then as a husband, I get frustrated when she acts like a woman? Or why does she get frustrated when I act like a man? I believe God specifically designed men and women the way that he designed them. However, those do cause some conflicts, and conflicts aren't all bad. It doesn't mean they have to turn into an argument or even contention, but because we approach things differently, we think about things differently, that can cause some conflicts. And you add all that to the fact that we grow up in different homes and we have different experiences, and whether they're hurts or challenges, we bring all that into a marriage, and that can be a recipe for some conflict.
Us getting married, I grew up in a home with no brothers, just my sister and myself, my mom and dad. My dad was in the military, out to sea 6 months to 9 months out of the year. So getting married, I wasn't used to what guys do, how they think, how they react, how they talk. So it was very eye-opening for myself to adjust to that.
Yeah, and that was helpful and a problem. It was a problem because she didn't know what it was like to live with a guy. I mean, at least I had some sisters growing up. It was helpful in that, I would blame that for being able to do whatever I wanted to do. Like, well, you didn't grow up with brothers. That's how everybody does it. Everybody has a basketball hoop in their living room. That's normal. However, there are 7 ways where men and women see things differently, and 7 ways men and women are different. We're going to talk through those 7. Number 4, I think we nail, as a couple. Actually, most of these, we check all the boxes where she would think like a woman tends to think, I would think like a man tends to think. And let me give you one disclaimer before we go on, okay? And I'll try to just say it once. We're not saying that all men think this way, or 100% of women think this way.
Or that there's only 7.
Right.
There's
sure.
a lot more. These are just the 7 that we have found are common with us.
Right. And you know what? What's ironic is even the men and women, the husbands and wives that we know, where maybe the roles are switched, it's humorous and almost ironic that they're switched. So they still have the same problems, because they still have the conflict because they are different, even though in that one area, the
lady acts like the man and the man takes on the lady tendencies,
yes.
which is just interesting. But not everyone is like this. But I would say the majority the women act like the women, and then the men act like the men.
First difference, men and women think differently, okay? When I say they think differently, I mean their brain works differently. Men use the left side of their brain. Women use both hemispheres of their brain. Now, I'm not a neurologist, but I read that on the internet, so I'm sure that it's true. But research shows that is the case. And because of that, men tend to be more focused. And when I say focused, I mean they can concentrate on one thing at a time, where women tend to be able to multitask a little bit more effectively.
And this one really boggles me because I can understand it, because I can do so many things, not that I should be, but my mind works that way. And to think that his doesn't can, and sometimes has caused a little bit of tension, wondering why can you not see all these things that I'm seeing?
Yeah, and it's not only with my vision, although that's what she'll probably talk about.
Got a good story for that
as we
one.
go through this. But just I can be focused in an area and not be aware of other areas at the same time. Where in my life, if I'm working on a project, I can drop the ball in other areas that are very important to me, but not at that moment, because at that moment I am focused, not just with my vision, but focused mentally on what I'm working on. And that can be a blessing and a curse. When it comes to that age-old dreaded question, by a wife to her husband, notice anything different?
We love to pull that one. At least I do.
That's the worst.
It's a little comical now, yeah.
So my go-to is first, guys, let me give you a little help here. I always look at her hair first. Like, is that different? Because I don't want to miss that one. If she got a haircut, or if it's a different color or something, I probably ought to notice that. But still, I mean, I'm just focused. So because of that causes some problems. So Go ahead, tell them what happened on Thursday.
So about 2 weeks ago, I had gone downstairs. We have a finished basement, and it's a little area where we have set up for even the grandkids down there. And off to the right is a room where he has all his stuff and he gets ready down there. So I had gone down and I had done a lot of rearranging and cleaning. I had taken out the area rug down there, thrown out a couple toys that just needed to be tossed, cleaned it up. It was a disaster and just tidied it up. I mean, it looked so much better. So my husband gets home. And so he gets home, comes around, goes downstairs. I thought the light went on. Then he went into his room where he keeps some of his stuff and came back up, nothing. So I waited and waited. I waited a good 15, 20 minutes. Still nothing. And I was like, I cannot believe, because it was a disaster. Because the kids had been playing, like just stuff was everywhere. Anyway, so I finally said to him, like, hey, did you go downstairs? Did you notice anything?
And I could tell by the way she asked that. No, all she said was, did you go downstairs? And I knew by the way she said it, I was supposed to notice something. And so I tried to explain myself, but it was already too late, because I didn't turn the light on. We have a finished basement, and in the living room down there, I didn't turn the light on. However, what she did clean and what she had done, I really should have noticed. I have no excuse. I have no defense, okay? It's just I was focused on where I was going and what I was doing. So because my wife, and sometimes it's said this way, men are like lasers and women are like radar.
That is it. I feel like that is really an accurate statement. At least for us, it is a very accurate statement.
Where she is very aware of not only other people's schedules and what other people need that day, but she's very aware of what they might be feeling. And like if somebody is upset, she's very aware of that. And again, there are good parts to that, and there are some negatives about that. One thing that I'll just say, let's get to, okay, so my wife and I are that way as well. What do we do about it? Well, first of all, husbands, we need to be thoughtful of our wives. And I say that because we can get focused on what we're doing, and we need to be able to keep our head up and recognize when our wife may need help, okay? I coach basketball, and if a young man gets a rebound and starts dribbling down the floor and he's got a teammate wide open under the basket and he doesn't pass it, inevitably I'm going to hear somebody from the stands, pass the ball, or even a word like ball hog, like he's being selfish and not passing in the ball. Well, normally I know that young man, and I know he's not selfish. He would have passed in the ball if he would have seen him. But the reason he didn't see him is because his head wasn't up. He was dribbling with his head down. And guys, oftentimes we just need to be reminded that we need to go through life with our head up. When it comes to our wives, maybe we don't recognize that she needs help or something that I should notice. Maybe we don't recognize that because we're selfish, okay? And we need to work at that as well. But maybe we don't recognize, not because we're selfish, but because we're not just in the habit of dribbling with our head up, of keeping our head up and being aware that, hey, you know what, this is what my wife has going on today. This is where my wife could use some help from me in an area this week. Just being thoughtful. So guys, a good reminder, we've exposed this difference, and we all know that men and women are different. But in this area, men and women, their brains actually work differently. So guys, piece of advice, work at noticing, work at being thoughtful, work at recognizing. Even if you have to put in your phone a reminder to notice this at this time. Again, work at being more thoughtful.
I definitely think it helps to remember that he is not going to scope out everything and see everything that I see. And so that I just need to give him a break. I don't need to do the dreaded question, which I love to do. But did you notice anything, or did you go downstairs? And sometimes it can be a little bit of a joke, but I need to give him a break and remember he's different, and that's okay.
And the other thing that I would say, and this one would be to wives, and that would be, wives, be careful about micromanaging your husband. Now, the reason why I say that is because I don't multitask well. My wife does, okay? So she can take care of her stuff and also be taking care of some of my stuff at the same time. And I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate.
Does not appreciate my help.
and well, I think you know this because I've said
facetious.
it. But this is how it can make your husband feel. It can make him feel like he's not capable. And that's not the way that she means it. And ladies, that's not the way that you mean it. At least I don't think that is. But that's the way that it comes across. And especially with younger kids. Now she and I have 6 children. 4 of them are married. 2 of them are at home. Our youngest is a sophomore in high school. And so we don't have children that need as much micromanaging. But when our kids were younger and she was micromanaging everybody at all times, every day, and then I came home, certainly it would fit.
It slid right in.
That she would micromanage me.
Yeah.
And so ladies, again, because you're capable of doing that, And because you're not laser focused, you are more like radar and you can multitask. I would just caution you to be careful. Pull back when it comes to your husband, because number one, you do want him to be a leader and you don't want to nitpick him or micromanage him. But another thing I'll just throw out there, even as your kids get older, remember, the more you micromanage, the more you have to micromanage. And we want to grow our children so you're not micromanaging them as they get older. And you don't want to have to micromanage your husband. So don't. Just work at not micromanaging your husband.
You know, in the Bible, the Lord said all the days that he created things, that everything was good. And when he created man, he says, it's the only thing, it's not good. It's not good that man should be alone. So the Lord knew it was better if we were together. And sometimes I think as women, we want to make sure that our husband knows, well, I can do that too. I can be better at that, or I'm better at organizing this. And I think sometimes we try to plow our way through making sure that he feels like that we could do those things. But it needs to be, the Lord said, it's not good that we're supposed to be, it is not good that he's alone. The Lord knew it was better for us to be together. But sometimes I think we micromanage, not on purpose, but almost trying to get that acknowledgement that we know what we're doing. The Lord knows that it's better for us to be together. But whatever I'm going to say when I go to micromanage, I think need to take a step back and think it through. For me, it helps me to step back, and I don't do it all the time. I do try to be aware of it and take a step back and just say, in 5 minutes after I made this comment, is it going to bring harmony or is it going to bring discord? Like, is this going to bring us closer together or is this going to cause some tension? And that helps me just to reflect like, okay, I just need to not say that because I wouldn't like it if someone said that to me. But sometimes I think we just say things without thinking things through. And it helps me just to, all right, in 5 minutes, next week, is this going to help me or is this going to bring discord to it? But it's definitely, you get in the position of managing a household, managing people, and then we just let it carry on over. And I know I have done it. And now that the kids are older, I don't really have anybody, so I need somebody. So I have to watch myself that I don't try to make me micromanage him. He doesn't need any help. He's doing just fine.
The second area where men and women are different is the way we approach money. Most men would overspend or pay at least full price for an item that they need. If they need it, they're just going to buy it. Okay? Most women would buy 2 of an item that they don't need because it's on sale.
It was a good sale.
Yeah.
It was on clearance.
Now, that works that way in our house. And I do know couples that they have, this is opposite. The woman, she would pay full price for something that she needed, and the man will buy 2 because it's on sale. In our house, my wife goes rummage sailing and she brings back all sorts of things for our next rummage sale. At least that's the way it feels, okay? Because it's a bargain. All right, now, that being said, this is one of those in finances where a difference in opinion and a difference in viewpoint can cause some tremendous problems and stress. Because if you get yourself in financial problems, okay, now you've got something more to stress about, right? When there's already enough problems in life and enough stress that comes into a marriage, especially a family with multiple children. So let's talk finances for just a moment. Regardless of the fact that, we see things differently, let's understand 2 things. Number 1, have a budget. I don't mean to insult your intelligence, okay, but have a budget. I mean, if what you spend needs to be less than the amount of money that you bring in. And in our society, unfortunately, that does not have to be the case. You can spend more money than you make for a while, and then you're so far in debt that now you have tremendous stress in your financial life and in your marriage. So number 1, have a budget, decide on a budget. I know, guys, it's not very romantic, to talk through, but talk through your expenses, your bills, your income, and get that budget set. Okay, and we can talk more about budget in a different video, but have a budget and stick by it. Secondly, because you view things differently, just decide that you're going to be content. Just be content, It's been said there are 2 ways to be wealthy. You can either have everything that you want, or you can want everything that you have. Okay, well, I don't know if you can have everything that you want, but we can't. But we can want everything that we have. Okay, we are capable of doing that, okay? And that is the easiest way to be wealthy. And you know what? If you're not content, it's going to be very difficult for you to stick to whatever budget you and your spouse decide on. Just work to be content.
At the end of my life, I'm not going to be upset that I didn't buy that couch, but I am going to be more unhappy if that couch that I had to have brought all sorts of stress and brought, sometimes, over finances, people get divorced. People have fights over finances. At the end of my life, I want to look back and I have enjoyed going through it together. I don't want to have all the things and think that that is going to make us have a good relationship or have a good family. Those aren't the things that matter.
See if you agree with this. You'll be content because of who you are, not because of your circumstances. Do you agree with that? Now, the reason I ask, and I believe that is true, you are content because of who you are, not because of the situation that you are in. Now, the reason I say that is because I think that all of us know somebody who is wealthy and they're miserable. And I think that all of us would know somebody that is not wealthy, but they're happy. And at the same time, I bet you that you know somebody who's wealthy and they're happy. And you know somebody who is not wealthy and they're miserable. So being happy or miserable, it doesn't have to do with your circumstances, your surrounding, your lot in life. It will be determined by your heart condition and about whether or not you've decided that, you know what, I'm not going to complain about this. I'm going to change what I can control and what I can change, and I'm going to make peace with everything else. But that sounds very easy to say, right, but it's difficult to do. When it comes to the way that we view money, probably you and your spouse, you view money differently. Because of that, let's not argue and fuss and fight about it. Let's just come up with a budget that we will agree on, and then stick to your budget. And then secondly, work at being content. Before we move on to the third way that we're different, let me just say this about contentment. Contentment, it runs deeper than money. Because you know what? There are men who are married to beautiful ladies who are good people, and you know what? They are not content in that relationship. They're just not. But I want to decide to be content in my relationship. Okay, this is the woman that God has given me, that I have chosen to be my wife, and I can be content. And by the way, if I'm not content in this relationship, can I apply that same principle? It's not because of my circumstance, okay? It's because of me and my heart. In my heart, I need to recognize that, you know what, this is the girl for me, and be content. Just work to be content. Third area where men and women are different are in the way that they communicate. Men tend to use fewer words. Women use more words. They're more detailed. They're more descriptive in their descriptions. It's been said this way. Men are like bullet points. Women are like paragraphs. And by the way, I'm not making light of either one. Bullet points have their place and paragraphs have their place, okay?
I need to know all the details. I need to know like what they looked like, exactly what they said, the tone of their voice, their facial expression.
Hey, I've heard this.
I need to know everything.
I've heard this said, and it rings true in our relationship. My wife can have a 2-minute conversation and then take 30 minutes to explain to me what was said in that 2-minute conversation. I can have a 30-minute conversation and I can easily boil that down to 120 seconds.
Any of the juicy details. I need to know all the juicy details.
Bullet points, paragraphs.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now,
absolutely.
Now, because of that, again, that can cause some conflict because she doesn't want bullet points from me. And oftentimes, I'm not looking for paragraphs from her. So, you know what? Hey, let's just be honest. I just need to be happy and to enjoy paragraphs.
And I need to be aware of when he just wants to say a few things and let it go. Rather than trying to make him have these paragraph conversations, I need to be aware. I'm a radar. I need to be aware of he's just gotten home from work or he's had a rough day. I need to lay back on the questions and not expect 2 paragraphs right now. That's great. We'll talk later.
You know, I would say, ladies, especially when your husband first gets home, you know, or when you just see one another, okay? And just let me say this. I'll probably say this at the end again, but none of this information should be used as a weapon or a crutch. You know, a weapon like, well, now you're just acting like a woman, or a crutch with, well, that's just the way that I am. No, all of these things, the differences and the reason for this video is for you to recognize those differences and then allow that to make you a better husband or a better wife.
If you're aware of it, then you should be better at getting along with each other. If you're aware that, hey, he's a bullet and I'm a paragraph, then I shouldn't go in here expecting all these paragraphs.
Well,
Now that I know this, it makes me more aware. And then I'm like, okay, my expectations aren't so high.
yeah, and then sometimes if we could just take a deep breath and just be a good spouse and enjoy being a good spouse, not faking it, but enjoy having a conversation where, I mean, I am very descriptive and very detailed, and it's okay for me to take 30 minutes to explain that 30-minute conversation and recognize that's what she would want. And so to do that, and then by the way, don't keep score, you know? Last time I gave you a 30-minute detailed description. So this time you're gonna have to put up with my bullet points. No, we don't need to keep score on it. Just work to be the spouse that you can be, the very best spouse that you can be. This is the one, the fourth area is where I just feel like we're very much like this, and that's in our outlook on companionship. And we think differently on this. For me, doing what we're doing right now, I'm just sitting here, I'm holding my wife's hand. The only thing that could make this better is if Sports Center was on. Okay, that would be perfect. That is a way that most men get close. Just by being in close proximity to one another and experiencing something together. There's probably not a lot of words, but just being together. Now, my wife, on the other hand, sharing emotions and experiences through communicating and talking, that is how she gets close. That is how she feels close. That is companionship to her. So there's a difference. Okay, I like just being together, holding hands. She likes to communicate and express feelings. Most of this, guys, it's going to be slanted toward us. Two things. Number one, I need to work to communicate like my wife likes to communicate. And I know what that way is. And guys, if you don't know what that way is, just watch how she communicates with her friends. Watch how they talk, what they talk about, all the descriptions and all the words that they use, the way they act and interact with one another. It was years ago, and I was at work talking with one of my coworkers about body language. And he was reading a book that described, if you ever wonder how to put the person you're talking to at ease, just copy their body language. So if they have their arms crossed, then cross your arms. You know, if they're sitting up, then sit up. If they have their hands in their pockets, you can copy their however they're holding, you know, their hands or whatever their body language is, and that would put them at ease, that would make them comfortable. So I'm driving home from work after having this conversation, and I had this bright idea. I'm gonna try this when I get home. And this was long enough ago where our kids were little and the kids were in bed, they were asleep. And so I walk in and I start having this conversation. We were in our bedroom and I start having this conversation with my wife. And what I am doing is I am copying her expressions. I am copying, boy, when her face lit up, my face would light up. And to me, this is a complete put on. Now, she knows this isn't news to her because she's heard this story before. But when this was going on, I got so far into it that I couldn't say, Leah, don't you see I'm copying all your actions and your emotions? You know, I was too far out there, okay? And I kept waiting for her to say, James, knock it off, you know, stop doing that. But I was convicted because she didn't tell me to stop. She was loving that conversation. And I couldn't help but think, boy, what do I look like on most nights, you know, when I come home? You know, what is my reaction? How am I communicating with her? The second thing is now, and it just happened the other day, we have a 20-year-old daughter, right? Jeannie is 20, and she's a sophomore in college. And Jeannie came home from work, and when she came home, my wife and I were in the bedroom, and she said from the bedroom to Jeannie, oh, hey, Jean, I didn't know you were coming home. I already told Dad. Now, what she meant by that was this. She told me a story that she wouldn't have told me if she knew Jeannie was coming home, because Jeannie was a whole lot more fun to tell that story to, right?
It's about toothpaste,
okay. Yes. And you know what? Again, I was convicted because when Jeannie came in and she told that same story to Jeannie, I could tell that it was much more enjoyable for her to tell that story to Jeannie than for her to tell that to me. Now, fortunately for her, she has a 20-year-old daughter that she can communicate with. Hey, but guys, how about when we had little children at home and she had no adult to communicate with? Man, my heart grieves. I should have been that person. And I want to be that person. I really do. I would want my wife to enjoy communicating with me. Now, she might hear that and have her doubts, because the doubt would be, yeah, but do you really want to communicate like that? Do I want to be the person that she wants to communicate with bad enough that it would cause me to affect change in how I talk in how I listen and how I communicate. The other thing to remember, ladies, is you don't have to make your husband communicate. Your husband is more of a bullet point. Your husband he probably is more of a sit on the couch and hold my hand and let's just be together type guy. And sometimes just allow him to do that. But guys, we need to do better at communicating with our wives. The next area in which men and women are different is the area of intimacy. For men, intimacy erases most relational problems. And for women, relational problems erase intimacy.
And that, I do agree with that.
So for the most part, I mean, intimacy is a way to get close. At least that's the man's perspective. And a woman's perspective is that's something that happens after you feel close and are
Spending
close.
time together, talking, right.
Okay, so you can see that, again, we're coming at this thing from two different directions, okay? It's another area where men and women, they approach this differently. Just two things that I would say about this. Number one, decide to stay crazy about one another. Just decide to stay attracted to one another. In the Word of God, Jesus is asked, what is the great commandment? And he says the great commandment is to love God. But the way he describes that love for God is very important. You're to love God with your whole heart, with your whole mind, and with all your strength. And he says, though, I believe he says it in those three ways because you can love in those three ways. I believe that love is a feeling. Certainly I have feelings for my wife. She's been my wife for almost 31 years now, and I have strong feelings for her. However, love is not just a feeling. Love is also a choice. That's why he said to love God with all your mind. Mm-hmm. Love is also action. That's why he said love God with all your strength, okay? And I believe you need to make a conscious decision that, you know what, I'm going to continue and I'm going to keep those feelings that I have for my wife. And you need to act in such a way to cultivate those feelings for your wife and to cultivate those feelings from your wife, where you just stay crazy about one another, where you decide to be in love with one another and to have those feelings for one another.
And that goes both ways, you know. The woman needs to decide that as well, not just for the men.
The second thing that I'll say in regards to that is be concerned and diligent about meeting the needs for your spouse, about recognizing that you come at this thing differently, when you come at the physical aspect of marriage differently. Just like many other things, these other areas that we've talked about, taking a deep breath and realizing, you know, it's not about me. I'm going to make sure that I am the spouse that my spouse needs me to be in all of these different areas. So decide to stay crazy about one another. And then when it comes to the physical relationship and marriage, actually be concerned and diligent about meeting the needs for your spouse.
Yeah, and just continue not staying surprised about the differences, you know, just recognizing them and then working to meet your spouse's needs.
The next area, I think this is the sixth area where men and women are different, is in what they want, what they desire. Most men desire, they want to lead, they want to pursue, they want to accomplish. And most women desire to nurture, to connect, and support. And by the way, I'm not saying that men are great at these things. In some ways, women are better leaders than men. They nurture and they connect. And sometimes men can be almost dismissive of people, and people don't feel like that man believes in me, where sometimes women are better at doing that. But they want different things. And because we want different things out of life, and we're attracted to different things, or we desire different things in life, there are a few things to keep in mind, okay? First of all, guys, this is a good piece of advice, especially if you're a young or a new husband. Offer support before solutions. I'm going to say it again. Offer support before solutions. It took me a while to figure this out, okay? That my wife wasn't always bringing a problem to me to fix it. She may have just been bringing a problem to me because she wants somebody to understand the problem. She wants somebody to listen to the problem. She wants somebody to get into the problem with her and feel that, hey, this really is a problem. But oftentimes I would jump ahead and even mid-sentence fix her problem when she really didn't want it fixed.
You know, recently my mom has moved in. We have an apartment. Our garage was attached to our house. Well, we've turned that into an apartment, and my dad has passed away, so my mom has moved in there. And so for a couple different areas, she will come to me for advice or help. And so it's like I have taken on a different role. I'm not like the daughter. I'm almost in some ways like a spouse. So she comes to me asking for advice or help. Well, she came in the other day and she walked into the apartment. The door comes right through our kitchen and I was in the living room. She walks in and she just said, I'm having just a bad day. Can I come in here and talk to you? And I'm just having a really rough day. And right away, I could feel myself because I'm in a different role. People don't usually come to me that way like my mom does it. And right away, because I love her and I know that she's been going through a hard time, I wanted to fix it. And so literally, like she came in and said that, and right away I gave her a couple things to help. And before I knew it, like she didn't say anything. She turned around and went right back into her apartment and shut the door. And so I just stood there like, what just happened? And it dawned on me. I was just trying to give her solutions, but she came in, she was having a rough day, was feeling a little down, and I'm going to fix it. And I realized that is what my husband does to myself. Not because he's trying to look like, okay, let's fix this and move on. He's doing that like I was doing to my mom is because I loved her. And I didn't want to see her having a hard day. I didn't want to see her being down. And so I wanted to fix it so she would be okay. And so that's what he was doing for me. Mm-hmm. Not realize my mom just wanted to yak about it for a little while. She wanted sympathy. She wanted a hug. She wanted a listening ear. And a lot of times that's what I want. When I go to him, I don't need him to talk. Like, did you not get the memo that I don't need you to talk right now? I need you to listen to me. I need a hug. And then I need you to send me to Dairy Queen and get me some ice cream. That's what I need. I don't need anyone's solutions. But I just realized that because I have never been in that role, I realized like, okay, now I understand more from where he was coming from when he's trying to fix it. It was coming from love.
And oftentimes, guys, maybe our job puts us in that role often. And ladies, maybe your job puts you in that role often as well. But I'm solving problems all day at school. And then when I come home, I'm just solving problems. And there are times when she would even bring a problem to me about one of our kids. And before she's done, I'm calling for that kid to come in the room because I'm going to fix this problem. And she's like, no, she didn't want me to fix the problem. She just wanted me to understand the problem. And by the way, I think a couple of those times she had already fixed the problem. She had already solved it. She was just talking to me about it. And we just have to, guys, remember, offer support before solutions. Ladies, I'll do my best to explain this one, okay? But just be careful how you offer suggestions and support to your husbands, or how you give advice to your husband. And I don't want to talk about us guys like we're third graders or something, but sometimes, ladies, we can be sensitive because it is in us. We want to lead and we want to be a good leader. And sometimes we take your suggestions as a threat on our leadership or as an insinuation of you're not doing a very good job in that area, or even an attack on our ability in some areas. And you know what? Even as I say that, that sounds so petty. You know, I know my wife. Again, we've been married for almost 31 years now, and I know that she would only be telling me that to help. She's only trying to help. But sometimes in my male brain, I could perceive that as an attack or as damaging to my leadership or the job that I'm doing as a husband. And so, ladies, I would just want you to recognize, I know you're just trying to help, but be careful how you bring that help and how you bring that advice to your husband.
Well, we have talked about this before, and the way he explained it is that he knows, like, not to give, like when I'm driving, he won't say anything. Like, and we just drove back from Michigan, and I drove for probably like half the trip, 2 hours. He did not say one thing, like, I'm getting too close to this car, like, are you gonna speed up? Is this where you're getting off to go to that rest stop? You know, none of that. He really didn't. He did not say anything. But when the roles are reversed, I do tend to give my input. And so he sees it like, why do you need to talk about how I'm driving when I make a point not to say anything about how you're driving? But I feel like I'm being so helpful.
Right.
Like, watch out, that guy's braking, you know, and things. And sometimes we don't realize, like, he worked at being quiet, so just letting me drive. And I just need to do the same. He's in the driver's seat, just let him drive.
And I guess the point of this is she honestly would tell me where to go, like turn left here, because she's trying to be a help.
Or save a couple minutes.
Right. And I would rather be a couple minutes late and have her happy with just my driving. And I know, ladies, and to be honest, that might sound dumb. It's just the way that I feel about it. And so because of that, having said that, I sit in the passenger seat, and rarely does she drive, but when she does, I sit in the passenger seat, and I would never say anything because I wouldn't want her to say something to me, right? But then at the same time, she says something to me about my driving because she's just trying to be helpful. So it's just understanding I don't need to be offensive.
It's micromanaging, though, to him. It can look like I'm trying to be a backseat driver, and no one likes a backseat driver.
So
and again, another story. Hold on. Again, another story with my mom. I'm telling you, this past year, I feel like I've been put in roles where I'm like, okay, now I understand how my husband feels with my mom being in the passenger seat and myself driving. You know, like, oh, the light's green, or aren't you going to go this way? She's been doing that, and my whole time I'm like, is this what it feels like when I do that to James? Now I get it. And not that what she says should bother me, but I've had my license now for how long have I had my license? I don't even
She's
know.
just trying to help, right? My mother-in-law is just
So
trying to
now
help.
I get it, like, okay, James has had his license too, yet I keep trying to stick my little 2 cents in, you know, and it isn't more like, oh, well, you just need to take it. It's not a big deal. Is what I'm going to say, is my backseat driving causing harmony, or is it causing a little discord? Maybe it doesn't bother your husband or your wife. Great. If it does bother or cause a little discord, but now that I know that, then what am I going to do about it?
The last area that we'll talk about is number 7, and that is the difference in what men and women fear. For example, men fear disrespect, or they fear failure, where women fear not being loved or not being cherished. And if you look at Ephesians chapter 5 in the Word of God, the Bible outlines what a wife is supposed to do for her husband and what a husband is supposed to do for his wife. And it's funny the very last verse, when that chapter is summed up, God says, you know what? Wives, reverence your husband, and men, love your wives like you love yourself. And boy, if we would just do that, that would take care of the man's fears, that would take care of the woman's fears. It is deep inside of a man, and I believe put there by God, to want to be admired by a woman. And there's many a young man that's ended up in an emergency room trying to impress a girl, okay? And I can see this in my boys. I see it in boys when they're little, how they just want mom's attention and they want mom to be impressed with whatever it is that they're doing, because they want to be admired. They want to be respected. And ladies, that is why God knew all this, because he created us. That is why God comes and tells you as a wife, hey, reverence your husband. Make no mistake, the person that knows my mistakes, knows my faults more than anybody else on the planet, is my wife, is the person that I so desire her admiration and her respect. I get it. There are times through 31 years of marriage when I haven't always been admirable, okay? And yet I'm glad that my wife respects me. I'm glad that she shows admiration for me.
Well, I'm supposed to regard and treat him with respect. I'm supposed to respect the position that God has given him. I will not have to answer someday for our house and how things ran, but he will. And the Lord wants me to respect his position, but also to treat him with respect and think about him in a respectful way.
I believe that a husband should respect his wife, but that's not what God commands me to do in Ephesians 5. God commands me to take care of her greatest need, because her fear is not being loved, not being cherished. And it is Ephesians chapter 5 where God tells me as a husband to love her like I love me. For no man ever hated his own flesh, but loveth and cherisheth it. And that is how I am supposed to love my wife. And if I'll just love her like I'm supposed to love her. And by the way, remember, love is not just a feeling. Love is a choice. Love is action. And if I can love her and be thoughtful for her, and to go out of my way to sacrifice for her and to show her and express my love through actions, that can help her with her fear of not being loved or not being cherished. Mm-hmm. So, and when it comes to those two, then husbands, work at not being so sensitive. Understand that, yes, it is inside of you to be admired or respected by her, but don't take everything as disrespect. Sometimes we just got to take a deep breath and just say, hey, you don't need to be that sensitive. But wives, respect your husband and express admiration for him. You're married to a good man. There are plenty of things about your husband that are admirable.
You married
Express
him.
those things. Right.
You know, you have to remember that you did choose him, and you think, well, I didn't know that about him. You chose him. Now let's find the good and let's work at it.
As we finish up, thank you again for listening. And if you haven't subscribed to Family Foundations yet, well, we encourage you to do so. Thank you for watching our videos. We really want to be a help to you. And as we finish this video, I just want to remind you, all of these things, the exposing of these differences and talking about these differences, the most important part of these 7 differences is what we said and what can you do about the difference you have with your spouse in being a better spouse. This knowledge isn't to be used as a weapon, like, oh, now you're just acting like a woman, or a crutch for me to say, well, hey, that's just the way that I am. That's just the way God made me as a man. It's to be used to be a better husband or to be a better wife. You know, sometimes the longer we're married and we prepare things like this and we talk about these things, but it can almost cause a bitterness or a greater frustration, because it's like, okay, we've already talked about this. You already know that's the way that I am, and yet you have not changed. You know, you don't do anything different. That needs to change. We need to recognize that some of these things, they're obvious. They're almost humorous that men and women are so different. How am I going to take this knowledge and be a better husband? How can you take this information and be a better wife? Don't, pause and put this video in a spot where your husband can view it to improve him, to meet your needs. Make sure you view this video and think, as you're watching it, and think back across what this video is about and think, okay, how can I be a better spouse today, this afternoon, when my husband gets home? How can I use this information and be better?
A quote I like that I refer to is, if you change nothing, nothing will change. And if there's something that you find is causing discord in your marriage, well, what is something that you can change so you don't keep having the same results of discord? Sometimes we just have to do that hard thing and change something, because if you change nothing, nothing is going to change. And it takes me back to Ephesians 6, where it talks about that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Sometimes we can look at our husband like, well, he is the problem. This is the confrontation I'm having. But you know what? The thing the devil doesn't want, he does not want a good, godly marriage. He doesn't want that to succeed. He doesn't want your kids to see a happy marriage, a happy home. And so sometimes he can get his foot in that door of that little thing that bothers you or causes discord. He wants to get his foot in the door and make a big deal about it. And so that he gets us to have arguments or fuss or be upset with, gets me to be upset with my husband when I should be upset at the devil. I need to look back and go, what is this? Why am I so upset about this? Because sometimes if we take that step back and take a glance, it's about the dumbest things. It's about silly, petty things that I just need to kick him out. And then I just be like, no, we're not going to get upset about this. Nope, disregard that. We're going to have harmony.
When she said kick him out, I think she was talking to the devil. I hope she wasn't talking to me. As we finish up, what is one thing that you can take from this and affect change in your life today, this evening, this afternoon? You don't have to fix everything all at once. Just what's one change, one habit that you can start to be a better spouse today?
For me, it would be not be a backseat driver. So you pick one.
I'll let you know how that goes. Okay. Thank you for watching.